Right, so our next question. So again, guys, it might be slightly similar. Let's try and tackle some of the different questions. So we are given Tech Traders sells one type of laptop to major retail stores around South Africa. Now look at the type of business, guys. They're selling laptops. So immediately the Fifo method is obviously much more suited to this type of stock. They make use of the Fifo method, exactly what I said earlier on, and they use the periodic inventory system. The business is owned by Sakelo. Okay, so the very first question, explain the difference between Fifo and the weighted average method. Now, come on, guys. Do I really need to explain this one? Because remember, you should know this. This is the basic question that could be asked. So obviously, Fifo method, we look at stock purchased at the end of the year, and this is how we calculate the value of your closing stock. Weighted average method, we calculate the value of closing stock using a weighted average price. So I'm not going to write that down because I know you guys know this. Right, so 2 easy marks. Then the next question, calculate the value of my closing stock using the Fifo method. Okay, so let's quickly look at our table, which I think is on the next page. Right, there we go. So there's my table. So as usual, number of laptops on hand or the number of units. Then cost per laptop. So what is the cost for one laptop? And then obviously my total rand value in terms of my stock. Okay, so we are calculate the value of your closing stock using the Fifo method. So we're going to start off with number of units on hand at the end of the year. And why do I like this question? Because as you can see, the number of units on hand, there's a question mark. It's not given to me. Right, so there's a bit of calculation. So how am I going to get to firstly number of units on hand? So this one's slightly more difficult than the previous question. So I'm going to start off with my opening stock. But immediately, look at this, guys. Can you see opening stock is also missing? But obviously, I can calculate my opening stock looking at total value of opening stock divided by the cost per unit. And that will give me my opening stock units on hand. Okay, so let's do that. 240,000. Divided by 4,000. So the number of laptops on hand is 60. So I just want to fill that in. So number of laptops on hand is obviously 60. Right, to that 60, I am now going to add my purchases. So I just want to write it at the bottom. 60 plus purchases, which is 630 units, right? Then laptops that were returned, there were 5 laptops that were returned, so minus 5, and that should give me laptops available for sale. So 60 plus 630 minus 5, so laptops available is an amount of 685. Okay, not done yet, 685. How many laptops were sold? So the laptops sold 450. So minus 450, and that's going to give me my laptops on hand. So minus 450. So laptops on hand, 235. Right. So we've only done the first part to that question, guys. So I've got 235, but now I've got to find a value to these laptops. So remember, first in, first out method, I obviously work from the bottom to the top. Right, so February, how many laptops were purchased in February? 180 laptops. at a cost price of 4,200. So remember, February's laptops will not be sold because of first in, first out. Okay, so 180, let's just fill that in, right? 180 is coming from February, and the cost in February was an amount of 4,200, this figure here. Okay, so let's go back, so times 4,000, just go back there guys, 4,200, don't want to make a mistake, 4,200, okay. Right, then the balance, okay, let's get our calculator out. So 235 minus 180, okay, so 55 laptops are now coming from the month of, let's go back, it's coming from the month of November. So remember, February sorted, it's now coming from the month of November. And in November, the cost of the laptops were 4,500. Okay, so 55 times 4,500. I just want to quickly check that there's no carriage on purchases. Okay, so just bear with me. Carriage on purchases, right? There we go. There is carriage. So thank God I didn't do the calculation. The business pays a fee for delivery, 35 Rand per laptop. No refund was received for the laptop returned. Right, so 35 Rand is the additional cost, guys. So remember, the value of my laptops are now going to increase. So plus 35 Rand in brackets, and then plus 35 Rand. Okay, so very important. I didn't check the information earlier on, but very important that I remembered to go back and check, because remember, we didn't come across this in the previous question. So remember guys, when you are calculating the value of your stock, if there is carriage on purchases, your cost price obviously increases. Okay, right, so that is why I added on the 35 Rand. And if we now calculate this, so let's do each part separately. Okay, so let's get the calculator out. So we are taking 4,200, okay, plus 35, so that's the cost of my laptop, times 180. So the value of my stock here should be 762,300. So 762,300. I hope you guys can see this and it's clear. Okay, and then the second part of the question, guys, 4,500. I'm doing my brackets first, plus 35. Okay, and then I'm multiplying that by 55, and that gives us 249,425. So let's write that down, plus 249. Okay, and I've forgotten that figure. 249,425. So 425. Okay, almost done. Let me just quickly change the color of my pen. So remember, I still need to take these two figures and obviously add them together. Okay, so this figure here and this particular figure, and that should give me my closing stock. So plus 762,300. Okay, and that gives me a figure of 1,011,725. So 1,011,725, and that is the value of my closing stock. Okay, right, so again guys, still calculating FIFO using the FIFO method, but as you can see, this was different from the previous question. Okay, let's now move on. The next question wants us to calculate the gross profit for the year ended 31st of May 2014. So remember guys, whenever they say calculate gross profit, and I'm guessing you guys know exactly what I'm going to say, absolutely correct. Show all calculation. Okay, you've got to. Right, so the easiest way to do this is to draw up the trading account. Remember, you don't have to draw up the trading account. I prefer to do that because then I'm guaranteed of getting method marks in the event of my answer being incorrect. So my trading account, let's just fix that. I called it trading stock. It should be trading account. Okay, so if I look at my trading account, sales as well as my closing stock, okay, on the credit side, and obviously on the debit side, opening stock, okay, purchases minus any returns, carriage on purchases, and then I can work out my gross profit. Okay, so I just drew the format quickly. Let's now fill in your figures. Right, so let's start off with sales first, or rather let's fill in my closing stock since I've got the figure above. So my closing stock is 1,011,725, right? Then let's fill in the rest of the information. My opening stock, so there's my opening stock, guys, 240,000. So let's take that through. Okay, opening stock, 240,000. Okay, then purchases minus returns. Okay, so if we go to our purchases, there's my purchases. And remember, returns, there's a bit of calculation. So 5 laptops returned from February's purchase. Okay, so 5 times February's purchase was 4,200. Okay, so let's get the calculator out. So 5 times 4,200. Okay, and the value of my returns was 21,000. I just want to write that down. Okay, and since I have both those figures, let me just quickly work out returns minus purchases. Okay, so let's get the calculator out. Right, so my total purchases, an amount of 2,606,000. Okay, guys, I'm getting the figure from up here. Minus 21,000. Okay, so my purchases, an amount of 2,585,000. So let's take that through. Okay, so it was 2,585,000. Okay, right, then carriage on purchases. So back to the table. Right, now remember, they being very, very clear, no refund was received for the laptops returned in terms of your delivery fee. So when I'm now calculating my carriage on purchases, grade 12s, I am taking units purchased for the year, 630 units. Remember, I was also charged carriage on the 5 units returned, and I'm not getting a refund, so I'm not going to minus 5. Just be very careful not to do that. Times the delivery fee per laptop was 35 Rand. So my total carriage on purchases, 630 times 35, and that gives us a figure of 22,050. Okay, so let's just fill that in. 22,050, and obviously I'm taking it through to my table. Okay, carriage 22,050. Just want to check that, guys. Yeah, okay, correct. Right, so the last part is calculate your sales, and then we're good to go with our gross profit. So back to the table, okay, so I'm going to show you sales at the bottom. So my sales, I sold how many laptops? So laptops sold during the year, okay, 450. And as you can see, the selling price is not given to me. So if I go further up, The information below appears in the records of tech traders for the year ended 31st of May. Okay, we know that. The business uses a fixed selling price of 6,750 Rand. Okay, so times that by 6,750, and that should give us our total sales for the year. Okay, so 450 times 6,750, and that gives us a total of 3 million, okay, 3,037,000, and I think it was 500. I just want to verify that. Correct. Okay, so this figure, right, one last time, back to this T account. So my total sales, 3 million. Okay, I just want to quickly check, 3,037,500. Okay, right, so finally I can now work out my gross profit. And for my gross profit, obviously I'm adding everything on the credit side minus these totals on the debit side. Okay, like I said, you don't have to show a T account, guys. You could show a table with your calculation, but the T account, especially for us accounting students, is obviously much more easier. Okay, so sales plus 1011,725, and then I'm subtracting 240,000 minus 2585, just checking I'm not making a mistake, and then minus 22,050, and that gives me a gross profit of 1,202,175. Okay, so 1,202,175, and again I just want to make sure I wrote the correct amount. Okay, whew, right guys, so quite a bit done. We calculated the gross profit. We calculated closing stock using the Fifo method. So as you can see, obviously these calculations absolutely important. I'm hoping that it's much more easier, much more simpler, because remember guys, this section of work, it's really easy to score those marks. And remember, in accounting, when you can score marks, you need to go for it. You need to make sure that you don't make any silly errors, especially if you can get maximum. Okay, so for example, this was out of 7. And I'm hoping you were able to get 7 out of 7. Okay, right, let's move on. So our next question, let's just go back to the question paper. Okay, so the next question, we've obviously done the first 3, and let's look at 1.4. The owner and the accountant disagree on the method of stock valuation. Sakelo wants to continue using the Fifo method because it is easier to calculate. The accountant, Ravan, wants to use the weighted average method because she says that the profit will be lower and therefore the income tax will be lower. Okay, right, so 2 different reasons given to us for wanting to change the stock valuation method. So you've got the owner Sakelo, and he wants to use the Fifo method because it is easier to calculate it. And then you've got Ravan, who is the accountant, that feels, hang on, let's use the weighted average method, because if you use the weighted average method, your profit will be lower, and it means you're going to end up paying less tax. Right, now again guys, this is a bit of repetition, but and I'm repeating myself, so obviously there's a bit of a pun there, but please remember guys, the more I repeat, obviously you are benefiting. Okay, so immediately, what is the advice you are going to give as the internal auditor? Okay, so as internal auditor, how would you respond to the owner and the accountant's comment? State 2 points. Now guys, please be very careful. The question is not asking you who do you support. The question is not asking you who do you agree with, Sakelo or Ravan. The question is asking you how would you respond to the information that I read above. Remember, you are the internal auditor. So how are you going to respond to these two guys? Okay, one feels it's an easier system. The other feels I want to pay less tax, so let's use the weighted average method. Right, and they want you to state 2 points. Okay, so how are we going to respond? Clearly, we are now going to tell them, guys, hang on. You cannot decide on the stock valuation method based on what you prefer. It depends on the stock that you are selling. Okay, very, very important. Remember, the method that you use needs to suit the type of stock that the business is selling. Then you cannot choose your stock valuation method depending on how easy it is or how difficult it is. Obviously, again, it is based on which method suits the type of business you are running, the type of product you are selling. Right, and especially in the case of a laptop, remember, you're looking at something involving technology where the prices are constantly changing, so weighted average does not suit this particular type of stock. You guys with me? Right, another reason for you to give is you are not allowed to manipulate your profits. So manipulate, you cannot deceive SARS. Remember, if you do so, it's unethical, it's unlawful as well, and you can be held liable, you can be held accountable if you deceive SARS. So please remember these points. These are the points that you are going to mention. Okay, you guys with me? Let's now move on to part B. Is the accountant's statement true? Okay, so the accountant, remember, this was Ravan. Right, so his statement or her statement was, Ravan wants to use the weighted average method, and according to Ravan, profit will be lower, therefore income tax will be lower. So part B is asking us, is Ravan's statement true? Substantiate with a calculation. Okay, you guys with me? Right, so what do we have to now calculate? We've got to calculate closing stock using the weighted average method, which we've done in previous questions. Now, why do we have to do this particular calculation? Because remember, if your closing stock using weighted average is lower, it means your profit will also be lower. Okay, you guys with me? And if your profit is lower, it means Ravan's statement is true. So let's now look at that calculation. I actually started a bit with the calculation already because remember we've done this now before. So number of units at the end of the year, 235 units. Obviously I got that from the previous calculation. Times, I now need to calculate weighted average price. So I'm starting with my opening stock from the table, 240,000, plus purchases also from the table, 2,606,000, minus returns. So let's go back to the yellow, minus returns. So I'm going to now go back to the table. So remember guys, the returns were 21,000. So let's take that through. Okay, so minus 21,000. Right, and there was obviously carriage, so we need to now add your carriage on purchases. So let's quickly find the carriage. Right, there's the carriage on purchases, 22,050. Okay, so plus 22,050. Okay, divided by number of units available. Okay, so back to the table. So remember, at the beginning of the year, 60 units. plus 630 units minus 5. So 60 units plus 630 units minus 5, and the number of units available, 685 units. So divided by 685. So let's do that calculation together now. I know it's quite a long calculation, but I want you guys to work with me, please. Okay, so I'm starting at the top. Let's clear that. 240,000, guys, plus 2,606,000, and there's 3 zeros. Okay, plus 22,050, and let's not forget to minus 21,000. Okay, guys, I just want to quickly write this figure down. Okay, so I'm getting a figure of 2,800,000 and something. Let's go back there. 2,847,000. Okay, so 47,050, and I'm now dividing this by 685. So let's do that. Okay, so divided by 685, right? And I know there's a bit of cents, but I'm going to round off to 4,156. Okay, so times 4,156, and obviously 235 times that amount. Remember, guys, you can leave the decimals if you want to. In that case, your answer will be much more accurate. But in the exam, they will give you instructions on whether or not you need to round off to the nearest rand or to the nearest cents. So times that by 4,156, and that gives us 976,660. So 976,660, I think. I just want to confirm. Yeah, 660. Okay, right, correct. Right, so remember, we looked at weighted average, and we're now going to look at the Fifo method and see which method is giving me that higher gross profit, or that higher closing stock, and my gross profit will obviously be higher. So remember, guys, this is the weighted average method, right? And if I go back to the Fifo method, can't remember what our answer was, so we have to go back. The Fifo method, there's that figure there. Okay, so it was giving me a closing stock figure of 1,011,725. So 1,011,725. Okay, so clearly Ravan was absolutely correct. So Ravan's statement, okay, so his statement was true, okay, because as you can see, weighted average is giving you, so the weighted average method, okay, is lower, right? Remember, when I say lower, obviously the closing stock is lower, and as a result, it means that your gross profit will also be lower. Okay, remember, guys, this is 10 marks, and that implies that the net profit will also be lower. Okay, right, so remember, guys, 10 marks, quite a bit of calculation. You're obviously comparing the two, exactly what I did. I'm comparing the two, and then I'm substantiating. Okay, right, 8 more minutes to go. Let's see what else we can cover in the question. We did have a question from Tato, and Tato wanted to know what was the difference with the periodic and the perpetual system in terms of calculating gross profit. Okay, so I just want to answer Tato's question quickly. So Tato, please remember, if you're using the periodic inventory system. Remember, you've got to calculate your gross profit using sales, closing stock, opening stock, purchases, carriage and purchases. In other words, the T account that I drew earlier on. Okay, so please remember that when you're calculating gross profit using the periodic inventory system, I just want to write it for you quickly. Sales plus closing stock minus opening stock minus purchases, okay, and minus any carriage on purchases. If you've got import duties, you have to subtract your import duties as well, and that will give you your gross profit. Okay, so that is using the periodic inventory system. But if, however, you are using the perpetual system, so remember here, all you've got to do is show sales minus cost of sales, and that would give you your gross profit. Okay, right, hopefully, Tato, I answered your question. We've got about 6 more minutes, so let's see if we can finish this question. Right, we're busy with 1.5. After the physical stock count, the owner discovered 2 laptops were missing. Investigations revealed it was from the last purchase made. Calculate the value of the inventory that will appear in the balance sheet on the 31st of May 2020, assuming the business still uses the FIFO method. Okay, now this is what I like about this particular question. It's something different, okay, something that we often probably will not see, but when we do see it in a test or an exam, obviously we want to get this correct. Right, so according to the owner, there are 2 laptops that are missing, and he is assuming, or investigations are telling him, that it comes from the last purchase made. So if we go to the last purchase that was made, okay, let's go to our table. That was obviously in the month of February. That was the last purchase that was made for this particular financial year, and the cost of my laptop was 4,200, but remember, I'm also paying carriage on that laptop. So that laptop is costing me 4,200 plus an additional 35 Rand. So in other words, each laptop in February costed 4,235 Rand. Right, 2 laptops are missing. So let's just go back to the space. Okay, so 2 laptops are missing. So times 4,235. So my trading stock deficit, or the stock that is missing, 2,000 times 4,235 is an amount of 8,470. Okay, so remember guys, that is the stock that is missing. Right, they want you to calculate the value of inventory that will appear in the balance sheet as at 31st of May 2020. So all I'm doing here is I'm taking my closing stock, right, using the FIFO method, what we calculated earlier on, and I'm now subtracting 8,470. Okay, now very quickly, I do want to mention at this point in time, please remember, in the periodic inventory system, it's obviously very difficult for a business to calculate trading stock deficit. In fact, in your syllabus, you are often told that the business is unable to calculate trading stock deficit using the periodic inventory system in your syllabus. But remember guys, in reality, obviously it can be different because there are various internal controls that are in place to detect stock that is missing. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that because some of you might be wondering, but hang on, Mahesh, why are we doing trading stock deficit? Surely in the periodic inventory system, we are not expected to calculate trading stock deficit. This question obviously slightly different, guys. Okay, so let's do that. Let's calculate your trading stock as it would appear in the balance sheet. And I just want to use this particular space. Okay, so I'm going back to my FIFO trading stock value. Okay, remember guys, this figure here, obviously this is the figure that I'm looking at, FIFO. That was my trading stock on hand. Okay, so I just want to take that figure through. So it was 1 million. Okay, 1,000,011. Okay, and just going back and forth here, 725. Okay, so 725, and I'm minusing the deficit of 8,470. So in my balance sheet, I am now showing a figure of, okay, just checking how we're doing on time there, right? So 1,011,725 minus 8,470, and that gives me a figure of 1,003,255. Okay, so 1,003,255. Okay, so this is the figure that I will show in my balance sheet. Okay, so quite a higher order thinking question, but remember guys, expect these type of questions in your exam. And again, try and get these questions correct. Right, and then finally, we've got just under a minute, 1.6. As internal auditor, you are responsible to monitor and continually update the internal controls over stock. The business does stock takes regularly, suggests 2 other control measures that should be implemented. Okay, so very quickly guys, internal controls. How can you protect your trading stock, especially something like laptops? So remember, you're obviously doing stock count, which is fine, but they want other methods. So you could have your laptop stored safely in a storeroom, have a demo model. The customer looks at the demo model, and then obviously someone goes to the back in the storeroom and then brings in the laptop that was ordered. Okay, so guys, unfortunately, I only could give you one internal control measure, but I know you guys can do this.